Hello again, this is Steve back at the shop. I wanted to kind of go over a few things on this Farmall. This particular one is a 50 model. It's got a whole bunch of added on stuff that didn't come from International Harvester, obviously. Some of it did, some of it didn't. I want to highlight a few things on it. I've had this tractor for a few years now, and I love this whole thing. I want to point out I put this wide front end on it back a few years ago. Norton wide front end. If you get down here, you can see Norton to be exact. Got a little wear on it, but it works good. Took the tricycle off and put it on another tractor, believe it or not. Has some wheel weights, which have actually come in handy, believe it or not. This particular tractor's got live hydraulics, live power, M&W pump. Was added some other time in its past. I didn't do that. It was on there when I got it. Come complete with a international hydraulic valve. I added some isolation valves on it. I put these on here a few years back. That way I can cut off. This tractor has a 3-point hitch. I can cut the cylinder off, cut the hydraulics off to the cylinder, and just use the same deal, the same valve on the remotes. When I've got the valves open using the 3-point hitch, of course the quick connects back there in the back themselves cut the flow of oil off, so I don't have to have valves back there. Comes in real handy. In the near future, I'm going to have to take, and I'm going to do a video on it. You see that PTO box up in the top, on the top there, for driving the belt pulleys. This one has got a seal leaking. I'm going to do a video on that, of how to replace that seal. Right down in there. It's not as hard as it looks. You do not have to take all this crap off to get into it. It's a matter of simply removing these bolts here. I can get in here tight enough. You notice that's a cap right there that goes around that shaft. Obviously you take the pulley off, all that business slides right out in your lap. Change the seal, stick it all back together, no big deal. But if you've never done it before, yeah, it can probably look like it's a big deal. As I was saying, this tractor's got live power on it. It's also got, I don't know if a lot of folks aren't familiar with what these little gimmicks right here are. That's basically a resistor. Some folks call them a ballast resistor. I didn't put that fancy schmancy chrome coil on there. If I'd have had it in a toolbox and I needed it, I would have, because it works good. It's like I said in one of my earlier videos, these tractors around this place work. I'm not too worried about the correctness part of it, as long as it doesn't look like, doesn't look too hideous, doesn't look stupid. Which that chrome plated coil is kind of borderline. But anyway, these resistors, what they basically do is they cut the voltage to that coil. You can buy the coil themselves with the resistors that are already made into them. Personally, I haven't had much luck with those. They don't seem to last very long. I've gone back, when they burn out, I go back and buy a resistor. Those resistors come in several different ohm readings. Geez, I forgot 2-3 ohms, somewhere in that neighborhood. And they're pretty reasonable priced. But if you don't have that on there and you have a coil that doesn't have the internal resistor, you're going to burn the coil up pretty quick. B, it'll get hot and it'll cut out, and you'll be cruising along out in the field and your tractor will die, and it won't start back for half an hour later until that coil cools off, if it doesn't just burn the coil outright. I've had that happen more than once back in my ignorant younger days, till I figured out what the problem was. This particular tractor here has been a real lifesaver for me. it was my go-to tractor for quite some time for field work. These are excellent tractors for baling, cutting, mowing, bush hogging, and I'll explain the bush hogging part here in a minute. I did a video on a Super H that I had that had a overrunning coupler on it. Don't pay any mind to that spider. That's where I keep my pet spider. This particular machine has an overrunning coupler on it as well. It's got power to spare when it comes to mowing, bush hogging. Same principle here as on the one I discussed earlier. It isolates the PTO. These later series tractors didn't have live PTOs. The overrunning coupler will isolate your implement from the momentum generated from the implement. It'll isolate that from the tractor itself. I had mentioned in an earlier video about this 3-point hitch. And look at it a little closer here. This is an Abbott manufactured setup that was manufactured, I guess, back in the 50s and 60s. It's got adjustments out the wazoo. You can use a chains to hang it to where it'll only go down so far. Takes a lot of pressure off your cylinder when holding up something. It gives you a depth adjustment that the cylinder, I mean, there's no controls for any kind of a depth adjustment on this hitch, so I guess they're using a change to make up for that. You have somewhat of an adjustment there on that gigantic turnbuckle there, which that actually comes in handy too. The nice thing about this particular hitch, you can pull that pin out of that hole there, and you have fast hitch arms. You can put your fast hitch equipment in here if you've got any of the 100 series with a 2-point fast hitch. You can use those implements in this particular kind of hitch. I've only seen one of these a couple of times. I don't see too many of them around, but it's extremely well built. If you never get your hands on one, I recommend it. Hooks up to the axle housing here. Same on this side. Cylinder mounts at the top. They also made a belly mounted cylinder system that was actually on this when I got it. I took all that off and I went with the other type get up. I'm not really sure what other things to point out on this particular tractor. There, I will make mention the teardrop style lights. If any of you guys are running your 100 series tractors, 300, 350, 400, 450, they take a pancake style light. Now that 300 up there, it's got the wrong kind of lights on it. They had aftermarket lights on it when I got it, and they've been on there for 25 years, more or less. And I've been an advocate of it works, don't fix it kind of a thing. But I'll get into some of the other kind of lighting later. This particular one here has got, they make a light. You can kind of see that red light that's inside this one on the rears. And a lot of people they go all apey when they find one of those. They also make one of these that had a light that sat on top, a completely separate fixture that sat on top that had a red light on it. Those things are beyond expensive when you find one. These fenders actually came off of a tractor I parted out a few years back. They're not, I guess you wouldn't say they're restoration quality. They're kind of beat up when I got them, but I use them for their intended purpose, to keep crap off of me and when I'm working. This particular style, if you guys ever run across these, it's sort of got these factory made holes in this pronounced area there. That's a mount for a light. The ones that were available, I think the earlier ones didn't have all this. They were smooth. It had mounting on here where you could put a radio. But again, I just use them for for what they're for, to keep junk off me when I'm traveling, when I'm in the field or whatever. This, I had mentioned this in another video as well. This get up right here, I made a 3-point lifting, hydraulic lifting boom that bolts to the back of this tractor. It's got a gargantuan cylinder on it. It came off a backhoe, and that I use. The internal amount, or the amount of hydraulic fluid that's in that housing down there, which used to be a belly pump, was insufficient to run that big cylinder. So I took a hydraulic cylinder, obviously took the guts out of it, maintained the original ports, used that as a fill port. I welded a plate on the top to cover it up, made a mounting bracket on either side of the tractor here, plumbed her in straight into the reservoir there. Works great. Been working for several years now. So in case anybody wonders what that weird looking thing is on the side of my tractor, there you go. All right, I guess this is pretty much wrap it up on this old machine. If you got any questions, put them in the comments, and be sure to come back, like the videos, and come back, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.